The music world is in absolute shock tonight after what insiders are calling the most heartless celebrity attack in late-night television history. Jelly Roll, the country rap superstar known for his incredible weight loss journey and inspiring transformation, stormed off Jimmy Kimmel Live following a devastating body-shaming comment that has left fans outraged and the entertainment industry questioning how far is too far. What should have been a celebratory appearance to discuss his chart-topping success turned into a soul-crushing moment that exposed the cruel reality behind Kimmel's supposedly friendly facade. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story reveals shocking details about how Hollywood's biggest stars are treated behind closed doors. The brutal truth about what really happened between these two men goes deeper than anyone imagined. And we've got exclusive insider information that will make you never look at Jimmy Kimmel the same way again. According to sources close to the production, Jelly Roll had been looking forward to this appearance for weeks. The country star, whose real name is Jason Bradley DeFord, had specifically chosen Kimmel's show to discuss not just his music success, but his incredible personal transformation. Over the past 2 years, Jelly Roll had lost over 100 pounds through dedication, hard work, and a complete lifestyle change that he'd been openly sharing with fans as inspiration for their own health journeys. Jason was genuinely excited about going on Kimmel, revealed a member of Jelly Roll's management team who requested anonymity. He'd been documenting his weight loss journey on social media, inspiring millions of people who struggle with the same issues. He thought Jimmy's show would be the perfect platform to talk about overcoming obstacles and staying motivated. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. The red flags started during the pre-interview coordination process. While Jelly Roll's team had provided talking points about his music career and motivational journey, Kimmel's producers seemed unusually interested in focusing on his physical appearance. They kept asking for before and after photos and wanting specific details. About his weight loss, explained a publicist familiar with the booking process. We thought they wanted to celebrate his transformation, but looking back, it feels like they were gathering ammunition. Behind the scenes, crew members described an atmosphere that felt different from typical celebrity bookings. Kimmel was reportedly spending unusual amounts of time reviewing photos of Jelly Roll from different time periods, studying his appearance with the kind of intensity that made staff uncomfortable. Jimmy had this whole collection of pictures spread out on his desk, recalled a production assistant who witnessed the preparations. He kept making comments about how the weight loss wasn't that dramatic, and wondering if it was all just camera angles and better styling. What made the situation even more volatile was Kimmel's well-documented history of making cruel comments about celebrities' appearances. Industry insiders reveal that the late-night host has a pattern of targeting stars who are open about their personal struggles, particularly those dealing with weight, addiction, or mental health issues. Multiple sources suggest that Kimmel views vulnerability as weakness and sees emotional guests as easy targets for cheap laughs. Jimmy has this thing about people who share their personal journeys publicly, explained a former show writer who left after becoming uncomfortable with the host's tactics. He thinks it's all performative, that celebrities only talk about their struggles for attention. He especially targets people who've overcome addiction or weight issues because he thinks it makes him look edgy to knock them down. The tension escalated when Jelly Roll arrived at the studio for rehearsals. Witnesses described the country star as being in genuinely high spirits, excited to share his story and connect with Kimmel's audience. He spent time with crew members, signed autographs, and even performed an impromptu acoustic version of one of his hits for the staff. His positivity and genuine warmth made what happened later even more shocking and cruel. But Kimmel's behavior during their pre-show meeting immediately set off alarm bells among staff who knew both men's personalities. Jason was being his usual authentic self, talking about his journey and how grateful he was for the support from fans, observed a stage manager who's worked hundreds of celebrity interviews. But Jimmy was looking at him with this weird smirk, like he was sizing him up for something. It wasn't the normal pre-interview energy at all. Behind closed doors, makeup artists and wardrobe staff noticed that Kimmel kept making subtle comments about Jelly Roll's appearance, questioning whether the weight loss was as significant as it appeared in photos. He kept asking if we were using special lighting or if Jason was wearing shapewear, revealed a makeup artist who worked with both men. It was really uncomfortable because Jason was right there, and you could tell he was starting to pick up on the weird energy. The backstage atmosphere grew increasingly tense as showtime approached. Jelly Roll, who had been open about his struggles with anxiety and self-doubt throughout his weight loss journey, began showing signs of nervousness that crew members hadn't seen during his arrival. Meanwhile, Kimmel was reportedly making last-minute changes to his planned questions, adding material that his own producers described as unnecessarily personal and potentially hurtful. "You could feel something building," described an audience coordinator who helped seat guests before the taping. "The crew was on edge because they could see Jimmy was planning something cruel." Everyone knows how sensitive weight issues can be, especially for someone who's been so public about their journey. It felt like watching someone load a weapon before a battle. As the cameras prepared to roll and Jelly Roll took his position, backstage, production assistants were already expressing concern about what they feared might happen once the interview began. The collision between Jelly Roll's vulnerable honesty and Kimmel's calculated cruelty was about to create a television moment that would haunt both men forever. Nobody could have predicted just how devastating Jimmy's attack would be, or how powerfully Jelly Roll would respond when pushed beyond his breaking point. What unfolded next will be remembered as one of the cruelest moments in late-night television history. As the cameras rolled and Jimmy delivered his opening monologue, viewers immediately noticed something predatory in his demeanor, the kind of calculated malice that appears when someone is preparing to destroy another person for entertainment. When he introduced Jelly Roll, his tone carried an undercurrent of mockery that made seasoned industry professionals sick to their stomachs. "Please welcome a man who's been making waves in country music and apparently making waves on the scale. To Jelly Roll." The introduction was already loaded with fat-shaming undertones that should have been a warning of the devastation to come. When Jelly Roll walked onto the stage with his characteristic humility and genuine smile, the contrast between his authentic joy and Jimmy's barely concealed cruelty was heartbreaking to witness. The interview started with standard questions about his music career and recent chart success, but viewers who understand Jimmy's tactics could see him circling his prey like a shark sensing blood in the water. Jelly Roll, still riding high from his professional achievements, answered with the kind of heartfelt honesty that has made him beloved by millions of fans struggling with their own battles. "Your music really connects with people who are going through tough times," Jimmy said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "You've been very open about your own struggles, including your weight loss journey. Tell us about that transformation." The question seemed supportive on the surface, but those close to the stage could see Jimmy's eyes gleaming with anticipation for what he was about to do. Jelly Roll's face lit up with genuine pride as he began sharing his story. "Man, it's been incredible, Jimmy. I've lost over 100 pounds in the past 2 years, and it's completely changed my life. I feel healthier, more confident, and I love that I can inspire other people who are fighting the same battles I fought. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress every single day." The response was beautiful, vulnerable, and inspiring, exactly the kind of authentic moment that makes great television. Any decent host would have celebrated this achievement and used it to motivate their audience. But Jimmy Kimmel isn't a decent host, and what he did next will haunt him for the rest of his career. "That's amazing, Jelly," Jimmy said with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Though I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me being honest here, but looking at you right now, it doesn't really look like it's working, does it?" The studio fell into absolute silence. The cruel comment hit the air like a physical blow, so shocking and unnecessary that even the band members visibly recoiled. Jelly Roll's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, hurt, and then something that made everyone in the room hold their breath. The dawning realization that he had been set up for public humiliation. "Excuse me?" Jelly Roll said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow carrying across the silent studio like a thunderclap. The joy that had been radiating from him moments earlier was gone, replaced by the kind of pain that comes from being attacked at your most vulnerable point. Jimmy, apparently energized by having landed his cruel blow, doubled down with the kind of calculated viciousness that defines bullies everywhere. "I mean, don't get me wrong, any progress is good progress, right? It's just, when you say you've lost 100 pounds, I guess I was expecting more dramatic results. Are you sure you're not counting water weight?" The fake concern in his voice made the attack even more devastating. Those sitting close to the stage could see Jelly Roll's hands trembling as he processed the public humiliation. This was a man who had been courageously sharing his journey to help others, only to have his efforts mocked on national television by someone who had never fought a day in his life against the demons that drive people to food addiction. "Jimmy," Jelly Roll said, his voice steady but everyone could hear the hurt underneath. "I've worked incredibly hard to get where I am. I've changed my entire lifestyle, worked with trainers and nutritionists, and I'm healthier now than I've been in decades. This journey isn't about looking perfect. It's about being healthy and inspiring others who struggle with the same issues." But Jimmy wasn't interested in inspiration or redemption stories. He was interested in cheap laughs at the expense of a good man's pain, and he wasn't finished delivering his devastating assault. "Oh, I'm sure you've worked hard," he said with mock sympathy that made several audience members actually boo. "It's just funny how weight loss journeys work, isn't it? Some people lose weight and you can really see it, and others, well, maybe the camera adds 10 pounds, but it seems like it's adding them back pretty quickly." The cruelty was breathtaking in its calculated precision. Jimmy had taken a man's greatest achievement, overcoming addiction, changing his life, inspiring millions, and weaponized it for a few seconds of awkward laughter from an increasingly uncomfortable audience. Several people in the front rows were visibly upset, with some actually covering their faces in second-hand embarrassment for what they were witnessing. Jelly Roll sat perfectly still for what felt like an eternity, his face cycling through emotions that would have broken the heart of anyone with basic human decency. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but loaded with a dignity that made Jimmy's cruelty look even more pathetic by contrast. "You know what, Jimmy?" he said slowly, his southern accent thickening with emotion. "I came here tonight excited to share my story, and maybe help some people who are fighting the same battles I've fought. I thought you were different from other talk show hosts. I thought you had some class." The rebuke hung in the air like a live wire, and for a moment it seemed like Jimmy might actually realize he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But instead of apologizing or backing down, he made the mistake that would define both their careers forever. What happened next will be replayed millions of times as one of the most powerful moments of dignity in the face of cruelty ever captured on live television. Instead of backing down after Jelly Roll's dignified rebuke, Jimmy made the catastrophic decision that would haunt him forever. With a smirk that revealed the true darkness beneath his carefully crafted public persona, he delivered the blow that would finally push the country star beyond his breaking point. "Class? Oh, that's rich coming from someone who's made a career out of singing about drug dealing and jail time," Jimmy said with vicious satisfaction. "I mean, let's be honest here. You've cleaned up your act, sure, but have you really cleaned up your, let's call it your physical presentation? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've just traded one addiction for another. Food for drugs, is that really progress?" The studio erupted in shocked gasps and horrified murmurs. Jimmy had just compared Jelly Roll's weight struggles to his past drug addiction on national television, weaponizing the most painful chapters of a man's life for cheap entertainment. Even his own band members looked disgusted, with several shaking. their heads in disbelief at their host's cruelty. But the attack wasn't finished. Jimmy, apparently intoxicated by his own viciousness, continued his assault. I mean, when your stage name is literally Jelly Roll, maybe the weight loss thing was always going to be an uphill battle, right? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That was the moment everything changed. Jelly Roll's face transformed. From hurt confusion to something much more powerful. Righteous fury mixed with unshakable dignity. Slowly, deliberately, he stood up from his chair, and the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every person who had ever been bullied for their appearance, every person fighting addiction, every person trying to better themselves, despite the cruelty of others. "You know what, Jimmy?" he said, his voice steady but loaded with controlled power. "I've been called a lot of things in my life. I've been called a criminal, a drug dealer, a failure. But you know what I've never been called? I've never been called a bully who picks on people trying to better themselves." The audience was dead silent now, transfixed by the raw authenticity pouring from the stage. This wasn't a rehearsed comeback or a media-trained response. This was pure, unfiltered truth from a man who had reached his absolute limit. "I came here tonight proud of my journey," Jelly Roll continued, taking a step toward Jimmy's desk. "Proud that I've overcome addiction. Proud that I've lost over 100 pounds. Proud that I've inspired millions of people who struggle with the same demons I've fought. But mostly, I came here proud to share hope with people who need it." Jimmy, clearly realizing he had unleashed something he couldn't control, attempted to backpedal with nervous laughter. "Hey, it's just comedy, Jelly. Don't take it so seriously. We're just having fun here, right, folks?" He gestured weakly toward the audience, but the response was scattered and uncomfortable. Most people were too shocked by his cruelty to play along. "Fun?" Jelly Roll's voice rose slightly, that famous southern drawl becoming more pronounced as his emotion peaked. "You call mocking someone's recovery fun? You call attacking someone's health journey comedy? Man, I've been in some dark places in my life, but I never used my platform to tear down people who were trying to climb out of their own darkness." By now, production assistants were frantically signaling from the wings, clearly trying to salvage a situation that had spiraled completely out of control. But Jelly Roll wasn't finished delivering his powerful message about dignity, recovery, and the cruelty disguised as entertainment. "You want to know what real strength looks like, Jimmy?" he continued, his voice gaining power with every word. "Real strength is getting clean when everyone expects you to fail. Real strength is losing weight when you've struggled with food addiction your whole life. Real strength is getting on stage every night and sharing your truth, even when you know people like you are going to mock it." The studio was in complete chaos now. Several audience members were openly crying, moved by the raw emotion and dignity of Jelly Roll's response. Others were booing Jimmy, finally understanding that they had witnessed something far beyond acceptable entertainment. They had seen a good man's character assassinated for laughs. Jimmy, his face pale and sweating, made one final desperate attempt to regain control. "Security!" he called out, his voice cracking with panic. "We need to... This is getting out of hand. We need to go to commercial." But Jelly Roll wasn't going to be silenced by security or commercial breaks. "No, Jimmy, you started this conversation, and I'm going to finish it," he said with quiet authority that made even the security guards hesitate. "You invited me onto your show, and then you used that platform to mock my recovery, my health journey, and my efforts to inspire other people. That's not comedy. That's cruelty." The head of security approached cautiously, clearly unsure of his role in this unprecedented situation. "Mr. DeFord, we need you to please calm down and—" "I am calm," Jelly Roll replied with devastating composure. "I'm calm because I know who I am. I know what I've overcome. I know the lives I've touched and the people I've helped. Can Jimmy say the same?" With that final question hanging in the air like a judgment, Jelly Roll turned and began walking toward the exit. But Jimmy, in a moment of desperation that would define his downfall, made one last attempt to maintain his cruel narrative. "Yeah, walk away," Jimmy called after him, his voice high and desperate. "That's what people do when they can't handle the truth, right? Just storm off when someone calls out your—" Jelly Roll stopped dead in his tracks. Slowly he turned back, to face Jimmy one last time. And when he spoke, his words would be quoted for years to come as the perfect response to bullying disguised as entertainment. "The truth, Jimmy? Here's the truth. I'll go home tonight knowing I've helped people overcome addiction, lose weight, and find hope. You'll go home knowing you used your platform to mock a man's recovery for cheap laughs. Which one of us do you think sleeps better?" And with that devastating final blow, Jelly Roll walked off the stage with his head held high, leaving behind a humiliated host, a horrified audience, and a television moment that would change both their careers forever. The fallout from Jelly Roll's dignified exit began before he even reached his dressing room. Within minutes, cell phone footage from outraged audience members was exploding across every social media platform, despite CBS Security's frantic attempts to confiscate recording devices. By the time Jelly Roll had gathered his belongings, still maintaining his characteristic grace under pressure, Jelly Roll Deserves Better was trending worldwide with over 80 million views in the first 2 hours alone. What happened backstage in those crucial moments has been described by witnesses as both heartbreaking and inspiring. Jelly was quiet when he got to his dressing room, but not defeated, revealed a makeup artist who comforted the country star. He kept saying, "I hope this helps somebody," over and over. Even after being publicly humiliated on national television, he was still thinking about how his response might inspire other people dealing with weight struggles or addiction recovery. Meanwhile, Jimmy sat alone on his devastated stage, the studio audience filing out in disgusted silence. Many viewers openly expressed their shock at the host's behavior, with several people actually apologizing to Jelly Roll's team on their way out. "I've never seen anything so cruel in my life," said one audience member whose emotional reaction video would later accumulate 50 million views. "That man poured his heart out about overcoming addiction and losing weight, and Jimmy just destroyed him for laughs. It was sickening." Behind closed doors at CBS, emergency crisis meetings were already in session as executives realized they were facing the most damaging celebrity incident in network history. "The phone started ringing before Jelly even left the building," disclosed a network insider who witnessed the panic firsthand. Weight loss companies were pulling sponsorships, addiction recovery organizations were demanding apologies, and social media was absolutely annihilating Jimmy. "We knew we had a disaster that could destroy careers and tank ratings permanently." But the real earthquake came when Jelly Roll's representatives released a statement that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Unlike typical Hollywood damage control, this response was as authentic and powerful as the man himself. "What happened tonight represents everything wrong with celebrity culture," the statement read. Mr. DeFord came to share hope with people struggling with weight and addiction issues. Instead, he was publicly humiliated by a host who thinks recovery and self-improvement are suitable targets for mockery. The revelation that Jimmy had deliberately targeted someone's recovery journey completely changed the narrative. Within hours, addiction counselors, weight loss specialists, and mental health professionals began sharing their outrage at what they saw as an attack on the entire concept of personal transformation. "Recovery is not a joke" became a rallying cry for millions of people who had their own struggles with weight, addiction, or self-improvement. The entertainment industry's response was unprecedented in its speed and unanimity. Country music stars, hip-hop artists, and celebrities from every genre began publicly supporting Jelly Roll's dignity and condemning Jimmy's cruelty. "What Jimmy did was disgusting," tweeted one Grammy winner, whose comment received 5 million likes within hours. "Jelly Roll has inspired millions of people to get clean and get healthy. Mocking that journey is beyond unacceptable." Perhaps most damaging to Jimmy was the response from recovery communities across the country. Addiction treatment centers began removing his show from their waiting rooms. Weight loss support groups started boycotting his program, and medical professionals publicly condemned his attack on someone's health journey. "What Mr. Kimmel did could literally kill people," wrote one addiction specialist whose post went viral. "When you mock recovery, you discourage people from seeking help. That's not comedy. That's dangerous." The ratings collapse was immediate and catastrophic. Jimmy's show lost 75% of its audience in the week following the incident, with major sponsors fleeing so rapidly that entire commercial breaks had to be filled with network promotions. Industry analysts began openly questioning whether Jimmy Kimmel Live could survive what many were calling the most self-destructive interview in television history. Meanwhile, Jelly Roll experienced something unprecedented in his career: universal support from every corner of the entertainment industry and beyond. His social media following exploded as people discovered an artist who had overcome incredible odds with dignity and grace. Recovery organizations began inviting him to speak at events. Weight loss companies offered sponsorship deals, and his music sales skyrocketed as fans supported someone they now saw as a symbol of resilience. "Jelly Roll showed us what real strength looks like," posted one fan whose comment received 2 million likes. "He didn't fight back with cruelty. He responded with dignity and truth. That's the kind of person we should be celebrating, not mocking." The sentiment was echoed millions of times across social media as people shared their own recovery stories and weight loss journeys, using Jelly Roll's response as inspiration. The incident sparked a broader cultural conversation about body shaming, addiction stigma, and the responsibility of media figures to their audiences. Medical professionals began citing the encounter as an example of how celebrity mockery can damage public health efforts. When someone with a platform attacks recovery and weight loss efforts, it sends a message to struggling people that their efforts aren't worth respect, explained one prominent addiction counselor. 6 months later, the consequences continue to reshape entertainment culture and Jimmy's career. The show remains on the air, but Jimmy has become a pariah in Hollywood. Celebrities refuse to appear, sponsors avoid association, and his once loyal audience has largely abandoned him. Multiple sources suggest that CBS executives are quietly negotiating his exit, unwilling to admit publicly that their star has become toxic to the network's reputation. Jelly Roll, meanwhile, has been elevated to iconic status as someone who handled public humiliation with unprecedented grace and dignity. He's received offers for major collaborations, speaking engagements, and even a documentary deal about his journey from addiction to recovery to inspiring millions. His concert tours sell out within minutes, filled with fans who see him as proof that transformation is possible. "Sometimes you have to stand up for what's right," he said in his only direct comment about the incident during a recent award show appearance, "especially when you're standing up for everyone who's fighting to better themselves." The Jelly Roll versus Jimmy Kimmel showdown will be remembered as the moment when dignity triumphed over cruelty, when authentic recovery was celebrated over cheap entertainment, and when the power of grace under pressure exposed the difference between real strength and petty bullying. The real winners weren't just Jelly Roll and his fans. It was everyone fighting their own battles who learned that their efforts deserve respect, not mockery. What do you think about this heartbreaking confrontation? Was Jimmy's attack on Jelly Roll's weight loss journey completely out of line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that subscribe button for more shocking celebrity revelations, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the stories that are changing how we think about recovery, body image, and basic human decency in Hollywood.